Okay, before we begin, most of the issues I have with this show are purely personal preference. And I am in no way saying it's objectively bad because I don't like some of the aspects of it. So with that said, I'm looking at a show I'm trying really hard to like this week. And if you jumped into this video assuming I was going to be bashing it for being about anthropomorphized sexualized animals in a Japanese high school, you're sorely mistaken because I honestly don't care about that. And since I've already spoiled it, let's find out if Beastars is good. Alright, so Beastars, the show out this season about a bunch of furries in a high school with a murder mystery plot. And I suppose that's a pretty solid place to start with this show in terms of praise because the plot here is actually decent. So in a world where predators and prey live in relative harmony by adopting a vegetarian diet, tensions are still high. Specifically because literally in the opening scene a student was killed and eaten by his classmate. That paints the inciting incident with our protagonist, Legacy, a gray wolf having lost a friend and viewed as a prime suspect because all the predators within the school are. But despite the foreboding atmosphere on campus, the theater club is putting together a show to unite the student body by showing them predator and prey can work together and live in peace. I mean, that's what you do when a student's killed at your school, right? With that, we frame the central themes in this series. A commentary on vertical societal structure, with an oppressed caste of students due to their innate nature creating resentment and a desire to shine. Also adolescence, because it's an anime and why the fuck not? I mean, its primary audience is young men after all. So our protagonist is a wallflower trying to keep his nature hidden. I mean, gray wolf, dead classmate, attacking another student, but he's not exactly relishing in any of that. Rather, he's horrified at himself and tries his best to live a normal life, fighting his urges. You catch that? A predator fighting his urges to prey on smaller, weaker creatures? Specifically a girl bunny? Yeah, it's a metaphor for sex. Congratulations, you've all won a cookie for being so observant. Yeah, so, in my season preview, I mentioned that this plot is a lot like Zootopia, and I stand by that for the most part. It carries a lot of those same beats, of misunderstood carnivores and the mob mentality, but mapped onto an adolescent populace, to explore the themes of sexuality and coming into one's own. That's not a bad direction to take it, as it maps well, if not a tad confusingly. The characters are decently done too, Legacy being a soft-spoken introvert, more capable than he wants to admit, but kind-hearted at the center of it makes him relatable. I want to see him succeed because he's not a bad guy. The main bunny girl comes off as an outcast and a slut, but she has a softer side that makes her more tolerable. Then there's this proud deer with some inferiority complex with carnivores, but the whole school admires him because he's a strong, charismatic guy. An okay cast that helps sell the plot and sexual tension. Believe me, there's a lot of sexual tension here. So if I have to give some critiques, it's that while this series has elements of a good storyline there, they don't exactly gel together early on. Like, a student was killed, but most of them seem to have lost interest or forgot about it after the first episode, instead choosing to focus on their daily lives. And that could be a coping mechanism, but it mostly just comes off as callous. A dude's dead, so we have to focus entirely on a play to create unity. But those two things feel so separate from one another in practice. Off the stage, they don't trust one another until school life comes in and then they act like nothing happened in the first place. It's a bit of whiplash, as when the plot calls for interactions between the two groups at odds, there's literally no tension. And the play itself really doesn't put off a message of unity, as it's not like it has a carnivore and herbivore helping one another or forming a relationship. It's a pretty standard hero story, so what's it matter? I feel a few minor changes could have made this one stick together better to push forward a more compelling version of the message this series is going for. But as it stands, it's just sort of weak, if not functional. Now we get into my favorite part of this video, talking about animation. And this'll be where I lose all the fans of this show, but thanks for sticking it out for this long. Okay, so I really don't like the style this anime is going for. I already mentioned this in my first look, so I'll try not to harp on it too hard, but for those who haven't seen that video, I don't much care for the CG here. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad CG. In fact, I would go as far to say this is probably the best majority CG anime I've ever seen. The models are expressive, pack a ton of character, and they don't feel like they're made of plastic. For instance, the fur and such actually move. And on top of minor details like that, they did a ton of work to make the lighting stand out in this series. So much effort was put into this show to make it look good with a vibrant color palette and interesting cinematography that I can't outright say this is bad, but I don't like it. I see the value here, but it's still not my thing. Mostly because it feels like it's trying too hard to be a CG anime than its own entity. These lower frame rates are used to mimic the low frame rate of traditional animation, but it looks jittery here. And then there are scenes like this where they clearly just drew the characters instead of animating their models. Most likely because they didn't have models detailed enough for close-ups of these characters. It just looks weird to me, which is why I'm saying I am trying my best to like this show. So, is Beastars good? That's a loaded question. If it wasn't for my innate bias against CG, I'd say yes. I absolutely hate that I'm not digging this show for its style, story, and presentation because it's doing something most other anime aren't. In an age where most are complaining that anime isn't unique enough or creative enough, here we have a series set with characters you wouldn't normally see, incorporating animalistic traits well, and trying something new with doing the whole CG thing competently. Because for all of its faults, the sort of weak plot connections and personal dislike of the animation, I still see the merit in this one. I still like the characters, and I still appreciate the effort put into it, but I'm struggling. If you want a series that's thinking outside the box, or if you like what you see here, the storyline itself won't ruin your experience. So give it a watch. It'll probably be worth your time. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and do all that other YouTube stuff because that really helps me out. Thanks for watching.